Hey everybody, welcome to the Soul Report, where we delve deeply into the stories that uplift and inspire. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell, and each episode we bring you conversations with the most thought-provoking motivational speakers, spiritual leaders, skilled therapists, intriguing personalities, and amazing people from around the globe. We're here to explore the myriad ways these remarkable individuals motivate, assist others through their unique modalities and their life. So, whether you're seeking a spark of inspiration or deep transformational wisdom, you're in the right place. Let's discover together the souls that are shaping our world. Hey, everybody. I'm here today with an amazing man. John Kennedy Howard is an amazing author who has written this insightful book about a man or a young child who turned into a man and basically changed the world by breaking down another barrier. The book is called The Black Cyclone. It's about Major Taylor, a hero the world forgot. John Howard is the longest playing recognizable competitive cyclist in America. He holds the world records at both ends of cycling spectrum for madness, if you call it that, speed of 152 miles per hour, and endurance, traveling 539 miles in 24 hours. He was a founder of the Race Across America and finished second in the race. I think anybody that can ride a bicycle for as long as my guest has today is something special. Welcome to the show, John. It's a pleasure to have you on today. Tell us a little bit
Thank
about
you,
yourself
Douglas.
and how did you become an amazing cyclist like that? That's just a story in itself.
Well, I got my inspiration, I guess you could say, at age 10. Uh, I discovered um, another cyclist, a French cyclist, Alfred Leternier, who was a sponsored rider from Schwinn Bicycle Company, and his job was to break the bicycle speed record. And at the time, it was set by Charlie Murphy, who was an American, at 60 miles per hour behind the Long Island Express train.
Wow.
And of course, the French have to best us in every way possible. So he wanted to break Murphy's record. That was done in 1899, way back. So he did break it. Schwinn sponsored him. And what I saw was a comic book. I actually have that in my library today, the comic book um, on Alf Letournier. And I'm going to grab it. I believe I've got it right here. If you'll bear with me for a second. It was the inspiration. I saw that on the counter of the Schwinn Bicycle Store in Springfield, Missouri. The store was old school bike shop, uh, hardwood floors at creek, really high metal ceiling, uh, stacked to the wall with bicycles. And this was Schwinn's promotion in the 1940s, actually before World War II was over. Uh,
Hmm.
he broke this record when 100 and I'll quote it here, 109.92 miles per hour. So that, as a 10-year-old, that was news to me. I had no idea anybody could go that fast on a bicycle. But I made a supreme goal for myself. I wanted to break LeTurner's record. And it took a career to make that happen because I was, at the time, nobody knew who I was. And my career began advancing around the idea that eventually this would be one of my goals. And uh, I made a lot of races at the time. I was competing, in my late teens, early 20s. I made my first Olympic team and I was 21 years old at the time. And that was in 1968, Mexico City. And I went on and made the 1972 Olympic team in Munich, Germany, and then finally Montreal in 1976. And all of those were marked with um, events that don't necessarily have anything to do with sports. And I have since have become a strong believer in keeping politics out of sports.
Hmm.
But that has, of course, not been the case so many times. So, at any rate, I heard about Major Taylor, and when I was finally inducted into the Cycling Hall of Fame in 1980, let's see, that would have been 87, after my career was starting to wind down. Uh, my boyhood hero, Major Taylor, was also inducted that same year. And it was a huge, huge honor for me to meet his daughter, Sydney, who at the time was in her late 80s, still quite lucid. And I sat down and chatted with her for quite a while, and then subsequently went back to her hometown in Pittsburgh to interview her. And as Paul Harvey would say, I got the rest of the story. After Major Taylor's retirement from cycling, he was a leader actually in what at the time was not known as civil rights. It was part of the heritage of Black history and the equal rights, which didn't really get rolling, as we know, until the 60s. But Major Taylor was a good friend of Booker T. Washington, who founded the Tuskegee Institute. He also was a pal of W.E.B. Du Bois, who started the NAACP, and also a publication which was widely read in the Black community, called Crisis, the Crisis magazine. So these were some of the people that Major Taylor influenced and was influenced by. And I believe that he had a strong hand in moving the needle a little bit further in terms of equality. So that's a kind of a connection point between my career and his. I spent more than 20 years racing at the highest level, only to uh, discover that what I really wanted to do was write. And telling this story required almost, I would say, close to 40 years of research. That's how far it's gone back. I mined the microfiche labs at the Bibliothèque in Paris, where Major Taylor was very, very dominant in Europe, and also I call it the Rum Library in Sydney, Australia. It just a ton of information. Those were the two places where he raced, uh, but he literally had to leave the United States because of the overt racism that he encountered. Even the sport wanted to ban him. They realized finally that he was good for the gate, and baseball was catching up. So uh, he was allowed to compete, but universally not really well accepted by the white establishment. And quite often, there were many velodromes. Actually, they were just called bike tracks at the time, throughout the United States. And it would not be unusual to see half of the field on one side of the track supporting Major Taylor, and the other side uh, uh, possibly throwing things at him. So that's kind of what he endured. There were several attempts on his life. Um, One almost successful, actually, in near Taunton, New Jersey, a dirt track race. No, I'm sorry, Taunton, Pennsylvania was where that took place. And a larger Major Taylor was not a big man at all, and he was wrenched off of his bicycle on a cool down lap and nearly strangled to death by a 225-pound racer who towered over him and caught him off guard.
Hmm.
Uh,
Wow.
so this is the sort of thing that he endured, and he literally at every turn of the road he encountered that level of racism. It was not an era when the sports establishments of the day allowed blacks to play. That's the best way I can describe it. Um, but because of his immense talent, he was a real childhood prodigy. He started his career at age 14, or actually 13, and won his first competition in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is where he grew up.
Well, it's an amazing story. Your credentials are quite impressive. I've been reading them here. You've won many world-class championships, um, and people can find out more about that by going to the website and seeing just how accomplished you have been. Your record is. I'm a bit of an athlete in the past, and I'm looking at this and I'm going, wow, that is a lot of cycling. Won the USA Cycling Elite Level Road Championships 4 times. That's amazing. And I'm looking down the record here, set the world 24-hour canoeing record of 104.6 miles in 2000. You're quite an accomplished athlete yourself. And to listen to you talk about Major Taylor at 13, 14 years, beginning his career, who was somewhat of a talented bicyclist, but also knowing before every competition that he was going to go out there with a unseen competition, the prejudice against him. I admire his courage, and I think that anybody who can be accomplished as a an athlete like he was, and then face the prejudice in the country, that's over the top as far as I'm concerned, and that's a race of the soul. That's the spirit of the man to accomplish what he did. And also was just listening to you a moment ago about how he was attacked by, let's say, well, let's just call it what it is, by somebody who was prejudiced and jealous of him. He didn't stop. He continued. But can you tell us how he got the name Major? Was that a title that was given to him, or did he come along with
Uh,
that name?
there's there's several stories about how that occurred. His daughter Sydney, who I interviewed for many hours, told me that they mostly believed that the best story was that he was an accomplished musician too. He played piano and admired Scott Joplin immensely. He played several instruments, and I'm not even sure which instrument that he played, but he was sort of adopted by this group of young African American musicians who decided to form a band, and they were in their early teens at the time, and Taylor fit right into that, and they believed that it was one way of getting attention, of course, was to uh, dress up as in a kind of a soldier outfit, and those were sort of remnants of the Civil War uniforms that were worn at the time. And I think his father actually contributed some of, because Major Taylor's father was a Union uh, recruit who did fight in the Civil War. And incidentally, grandparents were slaves in Kentucky, but that lineage really went full circle when he started winning bicycle races. And as a contributing musician, he had the attention of a white audience because they loved to hear him play. The last of that probably took place about his 14th year because bicycle racing became an all-consuming sport and proposition at that stage, and the band was either disbanded or it went on without him because his focus was on racing. But he held that title of major from those early days with those minstrels, and that's how he became known. His first name was Marshall, but the Major Taylor moniker stuck, and from that point on, he was known as Major. Hardly anybody even referred to him by his first name, Marshall.
Wow. My mind goes to Bert, sort of dirt tracks, riding on bicycles. They weren't exactly the sleek racing bicycles we would normally associate today. Tell us a little bit about the equipment he was using.
If you look at the bikes, they're not terribly different from what you'd see today. But of course, today it's carbon fiber and uh, alloy components, and they're extremely light. Bikes of the day, the track bikes of the day, were they were all made of steel. Uh, the the lugs which held them together were hand cut, and they were, the best description I can give you is that they were constructed by craftsmen of the era, and they had to be very, very precise. They were built on marble tables that were perfectly aligned. Um, they were braced together with silver, and they were extremely sturdy. Heavy, yes. Um, but I would point out that some of Major Taylor's 100-meter, 200-meter, half-mile times were comparable to some of the best times that we see today. And yes, on period equipment. So you put him on a carbon fiber specialty bike that weighed maybe 12 or 13 pounds. I have to wonder how fast he would go today, uh, because at the time, he set more than, I'd say, had at one point, well, during his career, more than a dozen world records. And of course, records were meant to be broken, so they were, eclipsed by faster riders over the years, but nobody can argue that he was certainly the best in his era. And there's some wonderful stories in my book about how that played out toward the end of his career. I want to point out that Major Taylor was deeply religious. He believed wholeheartedly that God was his co-pilot, if you will, and that he was with him at all times on the bicycle. And that was the guiding light. He promised his mother on her deathbed, quite literally, that he would never race on the Sabbath. And that pledge cost him, in today's money, probably millions of dollars. At the time, it was tens of thousands of dollars. But he was probably one of the wealthiest African Americans in the United States and certainly abroad as well. And he made all of his money either through sponsorship or race winnings. And because he was the best at what he did, he didn't win all the races certainly, but long the longs in the long run, he did beat all of the top riders in the world for a period of almost 10 years, which is a remarkable feat given the fact that it was not always pleasant. And what he endured in America was certainly the worst of what I would call racism, just overt racism. This did not occur with the same regularity in Europe, although there were some incidents. For the most part, he was honored and appreciated throughout the world, and the same thing could be said of his experiences in almost, I think, 4 seasons of racing in Australia.
Wow. Listen, let's take a short break. Hold a thought. The book is called The Black Cyclone, Major Taylor, a hero the world forgot. Certainly bringing this book forward, John Kennedy Howard is a famous athlete himself with many world-class credentials, and to talk of this amazing young black man in a time when the world wasn't much appreciative is an amazing story in itself. So we'll be right back after this. The website is, if I have it here somewhere, um, www.majortaylorstory.com. We'll be right back.